Good morning. Good morning. I'm excited today, again, to get back to the 30 days. The 30 reasons why following Jesus is the best decision I ever made. And I'm on day 6, reason number 6, which is actually the 5th thing that God set me free from. And I don't want to reiterate this every single day, but yet I love telling the story. I mean, on August 3rd, 1989, I had a visit from the Lord that changed my life forever. In fact, it's hard to even describe, but the Lord made an impression on me that day that made me give my life totally, completely over to Him. And if you go back and listen to the first one, it talks about His presence being the number one reason. Because I experienced His presence, and when we experience His presence, it changes everything. His presence can do things that my words could never do for you. His presence did things in my life that nobody's words could ever have done for me. And so His presence was critical. But then after I experienced His presence, I didn't know what to do. So I drove up to camp, and that's where I'd experienced His presence before. So I thought, well, at least I could talk to Him there. Because when I experienced His presence on that day, I was working at a bar. I was managing a bar, and I didn't know how to talk to Him there. I was completely out of my element. I was in my element, but when He entered the picture, I just felt like, wow. I almost felt like I was busted, but He never made me feel like I was busted. You know, it's so hard to describe. The Waiting has a song called, I don't know what it's called, but it says, I love the way you look at me, the way you steer your eyes to see the bride beneath the harlot's skin, the virtue underneath the sin. I love the way you look at me. You lift the veil and you repeat your vow. And that's the way it was, man. It was like He came and I felt completely ashamed of myself, and yet He never made me feel ashamed. Is amazing. See, the devil wants us to feel ashamed. No doubt about it. He wants us to feel ashamed. So he gets us into things that when we get into the presence of God will naturally make us feel ashamed. Yet God's presence makes us feel loved. Makes us feel loved. So as I experienced that on that day, then I drove to camp, and I just surrendered my life completely to Him. Like it was I don't want to reiterate everything that I said in the previous days for those that have been watching. And if you haven't, I urge you, go back and watch that first day especially, and the second day. And hopefully all of these days, because they're huge reasons why following Jesus is the best decision I've ever made. Okay, so on my drive home from camp that night, I was in my 1962 GMC pickup named Duke. No light anywhere. Like I'm in a pitch dark area. I mean, it's night, pitch dark. It's in the mountains, so there's no city lights. I'm just driving home, and I knew there were things that I needed to commit over to Him. So the first one that I talked about was alcohol. I gave up alcohol completely that day. The next thing was my job. I was managing a bar. I knew if He still had a plan for me, it didn't involve, I wasn't going to be trained for it anymore in that bar. Okay. The third thing was the music. I was listening to music that was right out of the clubs, and it was garbage. The fourth thing was going to the clubs, because I was managing one, but even when I wasn't working, I was in one. We were there dancing or trying to pick up women all the time, or drinking. So it was one of those three things. We were either there to show off or dance or whatever, or to drink or to pick up women. And it was usually all three. So He delivered me from that. And then the next thing, I'm all confused on my timing here. Music, the clubbing. Okay, so that was 4 things that I gave up. The 5th thing that I gave up, and honestly, this was the hardest. This was the hardest. I'll talk tomorrow about what was really close second to being the hardest, but the hardest one for me was I gave up my friends. I gave up my friends. I had friends, we were close, man. Like, we did everything together. And let me just tell you, I loved my friends. I still love those friends. I look back on the time that we spent together and we had some good times. We shared some pain together. We shared some joy together. We shared everything together. And I'm not going to name friends on here, but I can tell you, I love those friends, even to this day. And I had to give them up. And here's something that I've learned since that really is why I had to give them up. But those closest to you will determine your direction in life. Those closest to you will determine your direction in life. And God was telling me on that day, I have a new direction for you. You've been following you. You've been following your friends. But if you'll follow me, I still have a plan for you. So I knew my friends were a huge part of that. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, don't be deceived. Bad company corrupts good habits. So listen, they weren't bad company for the direction I was going, but I was no longer going that direction. And I'll tell you, it was painful. I have a friend who was my best friend at the time, who I really pretty much have not talked to in 25, almost 30 years now. Talked to him like one time since then, since I really went the direction that God was taking me. Really spent one time with him, and that's it. We haven't talked since. And I've reached out, and it's painful. I'm just telling you, it's painful. But here's what happened when all this started coming together. It kind of all worked together, because the friends that I had, our life together was going to the clubs. Our life together was dancing and picking up women and drinking. Okay. So when I gave up all those other things, it seems like the friendships just kind of faded. They weren't gonna. Where were they gonna hang out with me? They weren't gonna come to church with me. They had made that clear, and so they weren't gonna hang out with me, and that was a major decision that I made in my life. And I was almost a year. I was pretty much friendless for almost a year. Because a year after I got saved, August 3rd, 1989, a year later, I went to Bible college in North Dakota. And I went pretty much friendless for a year. So I say this because this was it was a reason why I'm thankful and why I think following Jesus is the best decision I ever made, because he allowed me to make a really brutally hard decision that was going to pay off big time. Big time. As much as I really wish that I still had great friendships with all of those friends, because there was like 9 of us that were really close. And I was super duper close with 3 or 4 of them. And only a few of them have I really reunited with and have what I would call a good friendship with today. But the truth is, being able to make that super hard decision changed everything for me. Because if I would not have sacrificed, if you will, my friends at that time, there's no way in the world I'd have ended up in North Dakota at Bible college. No way in the world. There's no way in the world that I would have actually followed through on giving my life to Jesus. My friends were probably the biggest factor for me. So let me say it this way to you. If you're trying to follow Jesus and you keep falling on your face, you keep doing the wrong things, you keep going the wrong way, can I urge you, look at the people around you. You can't sacrifice family. Like if you're married, you can't just sacrifice your spouse, your kids. You can't do that. Everyone else is fair game. Everyone else is fair game. I guarantee you that if I were to rekindle a meaningful relationship with those friends today from back then, that they would say I'm a much better man today than I was then. And you know what? I was a good friend then. I was a loyal friend. I didn't burn my friends. I didn't do things that made my friends regret being my friend. But when it comes down to just being a man of integrity, being somebody that they'd want to be around, I don't know. I mean, you might have to ask him that, but the truth is, I know I'm where God wants me to be. And I'd much rather be where God wants me to be than where my friends want me to be. And to be honest with you, I was one that was holding them down because I was leading the way. I was one of the people leading the way back into the bars, leading the way even to drinking at that point. And I swore I would never drink. I was the one that was keeping them from drinking. And then once I started drinking, now I was buying them drinks all the time. All the time. So I'm going to end this now, but one of the 30 reasons why following Jesus is the best decision I ever made is that he replaced those friends with friends that were going the right direction. When I got to Bible college, I'm super good friends with so many of them today. So many of them. And God changed the direction of my life. Like when I got to Bible college, I could have easily found friends that weren't going the right way. I could have. They were there. And I became friends with some of them, but on a much smaller scale, and I was good friends with those who were going the right way. And I've made a point the rest of my life to do that. In fact, I'm getting ready to go here in a couple minutes to a Bible study that my neighbor introduced me to. My neighbor passed away 2 summers ago now, but he introduced me to this Bible study, and we've rekindled it since he died, and it's phenomenal. We have 9 to 12 guys there at this Bible study, and you want to talk about being around people that are leading you the right way, you're going the right direction together. I love this group. Like, it's an early morning group. Wednesday nights a lot of times are a later night for me, and yet I get up early and I go to that group. I do not miss that group. And when I'm out of town, I'm sad that I can't be there. Why? Because I'm around friends now that are leading me the right direction. So if you're having trouble getting on track, getting traction, going the right direction, look at your friends. Look at your friend group. And if there's somebody you need to eliminate, it may be forever. You may never have the same relationship with that person again. If you're trying to date somebody who has completely different belief system than you, you're deceived. I'm just going to say it like it is. You're deceived because they're going to influence you. And even if they kind of come on board and they get in line, I'm telling you, as a pastor of 25 years, I have seen this over and over and over, where two people, they're dating and you know, he's not a Christian or she's not a Christian, and they're really trying to live for God, but they're dating someone who's doesn't share their beliefs. And they end up getting married, and that person ends up going to church alone for a time. And then pretty soon they're not going to church at all. Not at all. And so I urge you, be careful of who you allow into your life in your closest relationships, because it will affect the rest of your life. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'll be on later for a daily devotional. But God bless you, and thank you for tuning in and watching this. And I know that your testimony is every bit as good as mine, so don't ever feel bad about that. But I thank you for sharing with me, and if there's somebody you need to share this with, share it with them. They'll be glad that you did. So God bless you. Have an amazing day. We'll see you tomorrow.